everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Boston Sports Nuts, America's most frequently honored and awarded cable access television podcast TV show. Founded in 1991 and still going strong 34 years later.
Woohoo!
April of 1991. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
We were wee lads in those days. Anyway, we have a lost episode of Sports Nuts, as Jim knows.
Yes, we do.
We actually did an episode before the first episode as a test,
Yep.
and we never were able to find it.
Yeah.
It's out there, though. It's somewhere.
You told me about that because I joined in 1993, September of 93, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is only, 32 years ago.
32 years ago. You were also a wee
You know,
lad
it's
at
funny
the
that
time.
we're all like around 47, 48 years old, too. So, you know.
How did that manage?
Yeah.
Started young.
Time stood still. Okay, so today, I'm Paul Izzo along with Jim Russo here and Ken Berman there.
Mm-hmm. Let's go. Sports
Nice to have you boys here.
Boston.
And
Sports Nuts.
I know we're going to talk about a sport near and dear to my colleagues' hearts, the National Basketball Association.
Well,
Okay.
wait a minute. Is it the NBA? Because the NFL is the National Football League. Can you say NBA or do you have to say National Basketball Association?
Well, they refer to it as the association.
I like it.
That's the key with the NBA.
That's
Yeah,
the key.
the association.
So
All right.
we're going to talk about the association today, and we're going to focus on a few
Reggie
different
Miller
things.
does that a lot.
Yeah.
We are going to talk a little bit about the Boston Celtics and where they're at, sort of at the 55% of the way through the season. But we're also going to talk about the three-point shot, physical play, and some other things about rosters and the construction of rosters. So if you're a fan of the association, sit back, relax. We got a lot of stuff for you here today. So the big story right now in the association and in the media and at the high levels of the association is the extraordinary explosion in three-point shooting. And attempts. And it was, it all started probably, we've had the three-point shot for over 40 years. But as we know, it was something of a rarity in the Larry Bird era in the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
With the physical play of the 90s, it really didn't take off. And then in the 2000s, when we got Steph Curry and some other guys came along, we have now seen sort of an exponential increase in three-point shooting. And the question is, has it gotten boring? At one point, it was you jump out of your seat if a guy made a three-point basket.
Yeah.
Now it's everybody's taking them. The rest of the league is now stacking their teams with three-point shooters. Players are coming up through AAU, taking three-point baskets.
Definitely.
Rec basketball kids in 4th and 5th grade are checking up three-point baskets. Ken told me a story about going to see his grandson, and in the layup drill, kids are taking three-pointers.
Yeah, they don't even do the layup.
layups.
They just stop and shoot from behind the line.
So I'm going to turn first to our basketball expert,
the guru.
Jim Russo, and ask him, what's your thoughts about three-point play? And specifically, do you think there's too much three-point shooting?
Well, let me answer the question, and then I'll give you an explanation. Yes. And to give the explanation, brief history. Started in the ABL, the American Basketball League, in the early 60s. The league lasted a year and a half. The ABA adopted it. It was
The American Basketball
American Basketball Association.
Formed in the early 70s.
Early 60s. It was
the
formed
ABA?
in the 60s, yes.
Oh, okay.
It was the middle 60s that it was formed, about 66, I think.
Okay.
I think so.
And it went to 1976. They had the red, white, and blue ball. The three-pointer was considered a home run. It was about 25 feet around the top. There weren't a lot of guys that shot it. Those of us who loved the ABA, Billy Keller, Louis Dampier, guys like that could make them.
Yeah.
That was about it. Came in the NBA, Larry Bird's first year. I was at one of his first games in New England and Providence. He had a 17, 18-footer right in front of me. We happened to have very good seats near the basket. He took a step back and took a three, and we looked at each other, my friends and I, and said, that's a change. But as you said, in the Bird era, it was not shot that much. It was a little bit of a home run. Bird himself says in the beginning of his career, he liked to use it as kind of a dagger or something like that.
He didn't
whatever
take
term
very
he used.
many.
No. He said the end of his career he was taking more. As you pointed out, the 90s, The physical play led by the Pistons and then the Knicks, the Pat Riley Knicks, the guy who would coach Showtime. The physical play became unbelievable. The Phoenix Suns led, as Bill Walton said, Mike D'Antoni and Steve Nash saved basketball. They went to their 7 seconds or less offense, which meant they were trying to shoot 7 seconds or less. They patterned the fast break where guys do not run to the basket for a layup. They go to the corner, and Steve Nash, who was a master point guard, would throw people like Sean Marion the ball, and he would make that three. It was very exciting, and I was thrilled because the game I loved was coming back, fast pace. At the same time, the athletes got bigger and stronger, and the court looked smaller and smaller before Nash and D'Antoni. If you look at a game from then, the court looks so small, and because the players are bigger and faster on defense. Then a guy named Steph Curry came along, one of the most influential basketball players of all time, who extended the length that you have to guard. This was, in its infancy of his career, a good thing because it further stretched out the defenses. And this, if you look at a court, even today, it doesn't look as small as it does in the 90s because players are much farther from the rim than they used to be. However, Curry unleashed this shooting thing where these NBA players are so good, they make enough threes to justify these numbers mathematically. And I think a lot of games have become, you know me, I'm a huge hoopster. They have become slightly boring when they're shooting 50 threes and the other team shooting 40. I'll have more to say later.
Well, I just want to talk about the math a little bit, just for our viewers. So if I come down the court and I have a 40% chance of making a three, and I'm talking team-wide here, not me as an
That's
individual.
high, but go ahead. Yeah.
But just as an example.
Yeah.
That means when I take a shot, it has a 1.2 value. 3 points times 40%. That shot is going to get 1.2 points on average. If I take a 2-point shot at 50%, that's 1 point. So what the NBA coaches have figured out is if I take more threes, I have a better chance of having more points.
Yeah,
and that's really, I mean, that's an oversimplification.
And one other person,
but that's really what they're saying.
One other person who deserves credit for that math is Rick Pitino. Dean Smith, when they adopted it in college, said somebody is going to figure out how to use this, and it's going to, and we'll see what happens. Rick Pitino was that someone at Providence College.
He was.
He turned a team that was not that great. He helped Billy Donovan become a great player. Now the coach of Chicago Bulls, 2-time national championship coach. They shot threes because Rick Pitino realized 3 was more than 2, and you correctly did the math.
And when he started, Jim, I might be mistaken, but it was a little closer.
It was
the college line hadn't moved it back yet.
Right, correct.
I could
believe
almost
so.
make that 3.
I believe so, yeah.
When I was playing a lot. So
they didn't go to the ABA 3.
No, they didn't. They didn't even go to what the NBA has now.
You're probably right.
So I think we're all in agreement on the history. So now I'm going to turn to Ken. Ken, right now, the NBA 3 has just shot up like this.
Yeah.
Everybody's taking them. Even last year wasn't like this year. It just between last year, the year the Celtics won the title, and this year we've seen an explosion. A lot of it has to do with imitating the Celtics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it too much, or do you like it? It's okay if you like it.
I don't like it. That's not my favorite. A couple of things I've been thinking about that we were going to talk about this. Ratings in the 90s dropped because the scores were 83 to 79 every night. Yeah. And it was just hard to watch. Guys killing each other, no one able to score. So ratings dropped. Phoenix comes along, plays fast-paced basketball. One thing I'll disagree with you a little bit. They threw it to Sean Marion in the corner, but they also threw it to Stoudemire going to the hole.
That's true. We're not in disagreement.
Right. So they did run real good fast breaks, and they got great shots.
Amari Stoudemire was the first player I heard referred to as a beast. Maybe you heard that term before, but yes. His dunking.
So the ratings
was incredible.
fell, and then that sort of saved it, and the ratings came back. Now the ratings have fallen again because I've talked to some people, even younger than us, and the generation below us say, it's really boring watching teams huck up threes. It's boring. So would trends happen and cause ratings to drop? So I love traditional Celtics basketball where they could fast break, get two passes, beautiful layup, and just get the ball up the court within 7-10 seconds and get great shots off. Or I miss actual designed basketball plays. There is one play left in the NBA right now, and it's the high pick and roll. That is the only play left in the NBA, and you watch it by every team with their top player over and over and over again, and I think that's why people have stopped watching and ratings have dropped.
So that leads us, that's a great point. That leads us to the job of a coach, okay? Job of a coach is not to worry about ratings. That's above his pay grade, although they make a lot of money. It is not to worry about the aesthetics of the game. Pat Riley proved that. Mm-hmm. He had an incredible...
Well, Chuck Daly started all that.
Yes, but Pat Riley is the juxtaposition because Pat Riley had one of the most... not my favorite team, but one of the most fun teams to watch, the Showtime Lakers, and then had maybe the worst team to watch in the brutal, physical New York Knicks. Yep. So, further math, and I'm waiting for Ken, who said that he's going to disprove this, but there is a Utah... There is a Utah person who covers the Utah Jazz. I think he's a broadcaster. He was on Frank Isola and Brian Scalabrini's show. He said, look, it is the math. Here's the math. Percentage of threes in the last 2 or 3 years made has actually gone up. It's gone up from about 33 to 35 league-wide. Shots made at the rim. Now, this is at the rim. This is not uncontested layups. As we see, NBA players shoot shots at the rim, and they have to contort their bodies that they're falling all over the place because they get 8 guys with wingspans. It's 33%. And that's a problem because coaches are going, I'm going to go with the math. Now, that doesn't make me happy, but so.
Yeah, I would love to be able to contend this with facts and figures. I don't have that. I'm not buying his stats. I'm not buying what shots he's. Yes, is he looking at a shot that Rudy Gobert is waiting underneath the basket for a guy to come? Okay, well, I'll always say this. There's a much higher percentage of making a 10-footer than a 23-footer.
Uncontested.
Right.
And by the way, Ken, he cited Rudy Gobert and Brook Lopez as the prime movers of this trend of contesting shots at the rim. You know, a rim protector. He did cite Gobert.
But we've seen guys like Kyrie Irving and other guys have their way with people, get to the hoop and lay it up and in. I think Paul said it's 100%.
No. Uncontested is 100%.
Right, exactly. I think
how many uncontested shots are there at the rim in the NBA?
Totally.
We all talk about
like
it.
4 a game.
Yeah.
Breakaway layups.
Oh, I don't know.
Like
I
that.
saw this morning on ESPN SportsCenter. They showed 15 dunks from last night. I mean,
but that's
they might
around
be
the
contested.
league. That's around the league.
There might be a guy right on him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Can I just respond to something you said in the previous go around? I think the reason ratings are down is very simple. There's no that I don't want to say there's no. What people liked about Michael Jordan wasn't that he was a great 3-point shooter, wasn't that he was the defensive player of the year. He made big plays, spectacular plays, reverse layups, dunks. If you go to YouTube and look up Michael Jordan highlight reels, your jaw opens up. If you go to Steph Curry highlight reel, you get a bunch of long 3-point baskets. It's not as much fun as watching the athleticism of the individual player around the rim.
And there's so much athleticism in the NBA
now that, look, I love Peyton Pritchard. He's on my fantasy basketball team. He's on my Celtic team. I think he's the best 6th man in the league. I'm not going to turn on. If I'm a neutral fan, I'm not turning on NBA League Pass to watch Peyton Pritchard.
No.
Yeah,
to watch Sam Hauser, to watch all these guys that can shoot threes. What's missing are the whether you like the Kevin McHale around the basket, the Wilt Chamberlain finger roll, I think what's missing, the Dr. J reverse layups over the back, that's what's missing from the game right now because it's a low percentage shot, and I can hire some guy who can make it from 40 feet away.
Well, I think if you watch it, it's not quite that it's missing. It's less, and it's not highlighted. It's like Anthony Edwards, unless he just throws down a monster dunk, which I think he's the best dunker in the league, and he's as good a dunker as Jordan probably, or close. They'll show him shooting threes.
Right, but the math doesn't encourage. If you're an NBA player, the math doesn't encourage you to shoot. My son, Sam, he's into the analytics part of the NBA. He said what's changed in the NBA is not so much an increase in long shooting as the long two is gone. Mm-hmm. So you have the same number of attempts around the basket, but you don't have the long two anymore. They're just moving it back.
Yeah, which is what I'm kind of saying is that I think those attempts are there, but they're not highlighted. They're not, they're not emphasized. Like Kyrie Irving, as much as he's not liked in Boston, as you said earlier, is incredible at the rim. Mm-hmm. He's incredible. Yep. Edwards is incredible. Mm-hmm. Tatum makes great plays at the rim. Jaylen Brown makes great plays at the rim. But then you'll just see Tatum, of his 20 shots in a game, 11 might be threes.
Right, but they used to run plays to get shot. And when's the last time you saw a shot from the elbow?
As I was talking to Sam last night, Kevin Durant's the perfect example. His best shot was like 17 feet.
Yeah.
What would he be now? He would have practiced as a kid the three. He'd be shooting threes.
I think another thing that's changed a lot, or what I used to love about 70s NBA basketball, was each team took I don't know how they did it, over 100 shots per game.
That's a different issue.
Right. I mean, that's
got nothing to do with the three.
Every team tried to run it up and beat you down court. And
watch
a
game
shot
from the early 70s and then watch Caitlin Clark. That's how they played.
From the early 70s, if you listen to the triple overtime, or if you listen to Brent Musburger doing a game, if there was a 24-second shot clock violation,
because they never walked the ball up.
Oh my God, they didn't get it.
They never walked it up.
Never walked it up.
Watch
ever.
Caitlin Clark. That's basically what she does.
And if I coached in the NBA, no one would walk it up either. I'll tell you that right now.
All right, so let me. Oh, did you have one point? I was going to say, we all seem to agree that it's a bit of an issue.
Yes.
So then the question becomes, should they do something about it? Mike, I'm gonna argue the case against it, and then I'll get your takes. What Coach K says, let the league figure it out. In other words, let the players figure it out. Let the coaches address it. It's a trend. It'll end. I'm not sure I agree with that, but I wanted to state the other side.
All right.
Jim, your thoughts?
With all due respect to Coach K, and he knows 9,000 times what I know. So I disagree. And the reason I disagree is he's right about trends, but trends happen for a reason. The trend isn't going to be less threes. The trend is going to be
more and more
better shooters. Brad Stevens was asked a couple of years ago, what's next? And he said, father out shots. That's going to be the trend. The next Steph Curry is going to have greater range than Steph Curry because, as you pointed out in the layup line, it's all the shooting. Mm-hmm. So I think the league does nip. I think this is their pitch clock moment that baseball did. And I have I forgot my diagram.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Anyway, I think the solution is not that difficult, but it does present one difficulty. The solution is to get the three back to where the percentages were.
Where the ABA had it.
Where either the ABA had it or the 80s NBA had it. The problem with that's the easy part as far as the
because you're talking about making the math different.
Yes. The difficulty is, what do you do about the three-point shot in the corner? That would change so much of the game. Do you want to change it that much? I'm going to leave that to you.
Well, you and I agree on somehow or another moving the three-point line back so that the numbers work, that a 2 is a better shot. Because I've always had the far-thinking idea of make a dunk 3 points and a 3-point shot, 1 point, because
that would be a radical
Yeah, that would
change.
be radical.
I grant you
because
that.
it seems to me you'd be rewarding the defense for forcing a team to take a shot further away from the basket, because I was brought up, taught, and played and coached to get as close to the basket as I could because it was a high percentage. And when I talk closer to the basket, I mean we ran plays in high school when I played a little bit that if you ran around a couple of picks and you ended up on the baseline 10 or 12 feet away, coach wanted you to take that shot because it was a pretty high percentage shot. But I'm with Jim. They got to figure out how to move it back. The corner thing is interesting because of what they would have to do to each stadium. I think the simple solution is add 6 inches on each, make the court a foot wide or 6 inches on each side. But that's what I would do, and I would move the 3-point line back.
I think if you extended the 3-point line back in the middle of the court and did not extend it in the corner to preserve the corner shot, you could see defenses cheating a little bit more toward the corner
Yes.
and worrying less
Yeah,
Yes.
that's true.
about the further shot. And I think that would mitigate some of the corner threes because now you have to cover 5 guys. If you know, well, he's in the corner, I'm going to go cover him, and I'm going to let Joe Schmo out there take that ridiculously long three. So I think that would mitigate some of it.
So to just summarize this, my recommendation, maybe yours, is to the NBA is to do what we just said in the G League.
Test it in the G
Test
League.
it, okay, and then go with it. Or maybe in the Summer League. Definitely in the Summer League, I should say.
Yep.
And second, I do want to issue a warning about this, okay? And that is you cannot take it away because we will be back to 90s and it will be worse. The court will look so small because everybody's going to give everybody, as Bird said in the old days, we used to just encourage people to shoot it. We'd let them shoot it. They didn't make, it will be brutal basketball. And you talk about rating slipping. So that's my recommendation.
By the way, it's whenever there's a big change, there's a big adjustment by players starting down at the grade levels, right? The NBA put the 3-point line in Bird's first year,
Yes.
79-80, correct? Scoring went down for 20 plus years in the NBA when the 3-point line came in. Took over 20, I think it was 23 or 4 years before the numbers started going
as
up
the
again.
guy from Utah said, it took a long time for the NBA to figure out 3 was more than 2 points.
Yeah.
Well, guys, in fairness, in 1980 or 81 when they introduced it,
Nobody had been practicing it.
Right.
thank you.
Right.
It's the kids
But it-
had grown up trying to
that's
get
true.
as close to the basket as
Right.
possible.
It took a generation
It took
for-
20 years for the rec basketball and AAU kids to and then you get to Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Sean Marion and those guys, they weren't shooting that high a percentage.
No.
They were really volume scorers.
Right.
And now you have guys 40% plus.
Right.
I always tell the story of going to a playground in the early 80s because I was just to watch some kids play because I was starting my coaching, and Dr. J was the big player then, and every kid with a 10-foot rim was just taken off from all points of the court. None of them could dunk. You go there now, and as Ken said about his grandson, everybody's shooting threes.
By the way, I always remember maybe the best 3-point shooter might have been Del Curry.
Yeah,
was very good.
Well, I want to move on to,
Yes,
to
let's
move on.
physical play, but I
Okay,
just
let's
want
move on.
I want to say, as the host of this particular episode,
Yeah.
why I don't like the 3-point shot. It's a pure gimmick. You don't get more points for hitting a home run that's 500 feet. You don't get more points for an 80-yard touchdown as opposed to a 1-yard touchdown. You don't get more points on a hockey shot from the blue line than you do from the crease. It just strikes me as a gimmick that unfortunately has now become part of the game.
Yeah, it's
and
here
I think,
forever.
And I think if we never had the 3-point shot,
They would have adjusted.
well, we would never have said, let's have a 3-point shot. It's like someone came up with the idea as a gimmick to start this new alternative league, and it wasn't even what people liked about the ABA. What people liked about the ABA wasn't the 3-point shot.
No.
They liked the tricolored ball, Dr. J,
And
the cool uniforms,
fast-paced.
the
In the
fast
pace.
pace.
Yeah, they were scoring
It was
150
more
points a
fun.
night. Yeah.
You know, that was what they liked about it. So they adopted a rule from a league that didn't even like the rule. It's just the whole thing strikes me.
Well, if you, like I said, if you want to watch that basketball on that court, and if you don't have three, there's no point widening the court. It'll be brutal. These athletes, they are the best in the world. They are so athletic and so quick that the scoring will be in the 60s. It'll be brutal, brutal, brutal,
Run a
brutal.
play.
Ken, it won't matter.
Run a play.
Ken, those guys were not as athletic as these guys. These guys can. It'll be brutal. They ran plays in the 90s.
Call the fouls. Anyway, physical
Yes,
play.
let's go.
Physical play, Jim. One of the things we're noticing, and the NBA has admitted that in the middle of last season, they began to allow a little bit more physical play.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been an attempt to, get the three, to sort of mitigate the 3-point basket or whatever. Thoughts on that?
Okay. As I think Paul said in our last show, credit. Give him credit for that saying. It's very funny. It's at least to me. I like it.
To us.
I said this last year. I noticed it in the second half of the season, and then it went through the playoffs, that the game had become, the refs were letting more and more go, and it was becoming more and more physical. Now, Scal loves this. It keeps the game going. There's more of a flow. My only concern is it goes too far, and that we take away these athletes' abilities to do what you said earlier in the 3-point, which is go to the basket, take the tough shots. I mean, Michael Jordan, one of the he deserves credit for getting the crap beat out of him and still doing that. If you're old enough, the Jordan rules of the Pistons, I mean, they had these rules and I'd have got them, but maybe it wasn't in the rules, but one of them was just clobber them.
Yeah.
And maybe that wasn't part of the rules, but I don't want that. These athletes are tremendous. So right now, maybe it's okay. But if we continue down this trend, I'm not willing to go there.
Yeah, they gotta cap it somewhere. They just can't let it become. I was watching highlights, working out at one morning, and they showed a LeBron James drive to the hoop, and he literally put his arm out like this, banged the guy forward, and then lowered his shoulder into him, knocked him over and dunked it, and the foul was on the guy on the ground. And I'm going, you can't do that. And you also can't mug a guy on his way to the hoop. I get that. So I just don't want it to go too far. The physical play in the 90s was horrible to watch. It was horrible. Boring basketball. So we can't get there. I don't know where they draw the line. We noticed it in the playoffs last year, the physicality.
Yes.
So,
Well, the thing that blows my mind is the offensive player backing toward the hoop, knocking the defender off his position. I don't. There's something I fundamentally don't understand. I was taught, we were all taught, that if you were in position as a defender, you can't just stand there like a weakling, but if you had good guarding position and you were, knew what you were doing, you could not be moved off that position. The offensive player had to make a move, or he had to pass the ball, or he had to dribble around you, or he had to do something. These guys just go wham, wham, wham into people, and I didn't know you could do that. And that started when Wilt Chamberlain was still alive, and Chamberlain said, holy crap, if I could have done that, I would have averaged 125 points a game.
Yeah.
Who would have stopped him?
Yeah.
nobody.
He was the tallest guy in the league. He was the strongest guy in the league. If he could have backed into people and just finger rolled it into the hoop, he would have got every basket for the team. So that's another thing I don't get. The physical play. I don't think it's the solution to the NBA's problem, right?
No, and that started with Shaq. Okay.
Yep.
In my opinion, and the NBA has a history of whether doing it in the rule book or just doing it, of adopting to their great players. Now, you noticed this, well, I noticed it, when Dr. J came along with these extraordinary dunks. The old traveling rule was 1.5 steps when we were growing up. You could not take 2 steps. Now the traveling rule is basically after you gather the ball, you're allowed 2 steps. Okay?
2 more steps.
Now, the NBA, this is allowing for spectacular dunks. You know, the famous Dr. J dunk from the sideline when he cradled the ball. Was it against the Lakers? I'm not sure. Just spectacular dunks, which is needed because of what we talked about with the 3. However, I'm with you. This is out of control. I mean, you can just bump and back and
Plow
I don't
into
know how you
people.
play defense in the post against a strong player. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, right. Well, there's no. The good thing about that, Jim, there's very few low post players now. So
Yeah, but when they do, it's just
I know
like,
I don't like it either.
you know,
I'm with you.
And
guys.
I have less of a like LeBron on a break getting away with something. Okay, Giannis on a break getting away. No, I'm not for it.
The
I'm
two
just,
of them are.
I'm not for it, but at least it's a spectacular play.
Yeah.
When you're watching LeBron or Giannis back in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just them two.
Oh,
Well,
it's
I mean,
right.
Tatum does it.
Yeah.
Celtics do it. But when you're watching them just try to back the guy in, no, that's not spectacular.
It's funny the guys that
I
aren't
didn't like it when Shaq did it.
right. The guys that aren't doing it are the 7-footers.
Well, some of these guys, LeBron's stronger than a lot of the 7-footers.
There isn't a 7-footer with a low post game anymore. I don't even consider Porzingis to have a low post game. Tell you the truth, but so.
all right. Let's move on. We got about 5 minutes left. We're going to talk about our home team, the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
Not focusing too much on the most recent games, but just sort of general where they're at. Interestingly, on the day we're shooting this, they have the 4th best record in the league.
Mm.
You know, last year they were runaway for the best record.
Yeah.
Houston Rockets actually have a better record than the
Yeah,
Celtics,
they
which
do.
is hard to believe. Start with you, Ken. Where are the Celtics at, and where do you think they're going? What should they do?
I don't know. This is an interesting season. Hard to put your finger on it. They've been a 500 team for about 6 weeks now. They're playing average basketball for about 6 weeks. You know, I was thinking what a difference a year makes. Last year we were saying, wow, coming off the bench, they got Hauser and Horford and Pritchard and, you know, wow, they can come off the bench and score. They're so deep and all that. And now we go, who's coming off the bench? Because they get nothing out of Hauser or Al now offensively. Like Hauser, he's just not having a good year. Pritchard's having a better year, but
Right.
it's the only guy off the bench that I don't know. They're right now they're not playing championship basketball. Let's put it that way. Maybe they can turn it on come playoff time. I don't know that, but right now they're not playing what I would call championship high level. Too many mistakes at the end of games is really remarkable to me.
Yeah, I'll based on what Paul said, I'll be general too, in that I think I agree with you on the bench. That's a big problem. And I think that we all love Al Horford. To me, Al Horford is a modern-day version of what Red Auerbach and all those guys established as being a Celtic. And but he's clearly taken a step down. Hauser has not had a great year. He has been bugged by nagging injuries. We'll see about that. The biggest thing to me right now is the play of the guards, and that the starting guards.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is White and Holiday. They have got to get back to at least a semblance of where they were last year, or this team is not winning a championship, because it is just too easy to double Jason Tatum, and we're not going to get into why, maybe another show, or Jaylen Brown. And this is what coaches will do if White and Holiday do not give the offense they gave last year. So I think going forward, it's going to be watching, do White and Holiday get back to form? And that includes the defensive end.
Absolutely.
The team is doing not a good job of stopping the ball. And it's nice to have Kristaps Porzingis back and protect the rim. But if you don't stop the ball, you're asking an awful lot of that guy because he may be guarding a shooter and have to leave him. Mm-hmm. So we've got to start stopping the Celtics. Have got to start stopping the ball and play better. And Ken, I'll use your term if you don't mind. They've got to start playing championship defense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. They're not there right now by any means. We don't know if they can turn it on because we haven't been there yet. You always point out the 2010 team that, Rivers decided that it's better to come into the playoffs healthy and rested than go for a higher seed.
Yeah, the difference to me in the Celtics, the 2010 team and the 1969 team, Bill Russell's last year, Sam Jones's last year, finished fourth in like a 6-team division and made the playoffs and won it.
Yeah.
Those teams were veteran-laden teams. Sam and Bill had won numerous championships.
Yeah, they knew how to win.
Yeah. They, I think, had the ability to maybe flip a switch. I'm not sure this team does.
Yeah, we're not sure.
Okay, so I'm going to take the other side of this.
Okay.
Nice.
A couple of things. Number one.
You're obviously wrong, but go ahead.
Okay. We had a little. Last year was not 100% juggernaut. We had a little of this in January last year. The Celtics were 6-4 in their first 10 games coming after New Year's. This year they're 5-5 in their first 10 games. Okay, we were having similar conversations about different concerns. Is Porzingis healthy? Do we have enough bench strength? Pritchard wasn't what he is today. We were worried about, how deep the team was. Point number two. The three best teams in the NBA on New Year's Day, record-wise, were the Celtics, the Cavs, and the Nuggets.
Thunder. You're talking
Thunder.
Yeah.
Thunder. Their combined record coming out of New Year's was 17-13. Okay? All three teams stumbled a little bit post-Christmas, especially the Cavs. The Cavs have been losing games. Third thing, so I think there's a little bit of malaise, mid-season malaise going on.
Yep.
Number three, the Celtics have only lost 2 games in a row once this year. Once. They have an extraordinary record after a loss. What does that tell me? It tells me that when they lose a game, they realize that they didn't play well and they usually bounce back. What does that tell me? That tells me they're still a very tough out in a 7-game series. Now, I don't disagree that they got to get better guard play. Holiday looks like he may either be dealing with an injury or that he's lost a step. I'm hoping that it's an injury and that he gets better. White is in his prime. He's in his late 20s. I don't know of any reason why he shouldn't get better. He did have a good game recently on the day we're shooting this. So I'm going to go with the optimistic view, which is that it's a midseason malaise, that the rest of the league has adjusted a little bit and is now doubling Tatum and doing things to mess up their flow. I'm hoping that Missoula, the rest of you got like 13 assistant coaches. I don't know what all these guys do.
Unbelievable.
Right? I mean, it used to be red, and now there's like a whole 2 rows of them.
Yep. Well, Scal mentioned your point today to back up your first point that, the game that's going to be played on the night we're shooting, he thinks they're going to win by 30 because I think he said they something like 13-1 after a loss.
Yeah.
Now, the flip side, he said, was like after their last 12 wins, they're 3-9.
Yeah. So they're but
something like that.
Yeah, but they've been a 500 team, as Ken pointed out, more or less for about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But they're not losing back-to-back. And I still think, if you look at the Celtics and you look at the talent and you have if you have a healthy KP, a healthy Brown, and a healthy Tatum going into the playoffs, I like their chances. I do.
Yes.
Especially KP.
But some of the differences between this year and last year to me, I believe they're 12-8 at home. They lost 4 games. They were dominant at home last year. They are far from dominant. And the amount of double-digit losses.
It's like, before you say that, it's like 5-7 in the last 12.
Yeah.
Something like that. Go ahead. Sorry.
At this point when we're taping.
Yeah, when we're taping.
Double-figure losses? They didn't have one last year until like now. they've lost like 4 out of the last 5 games by double figures. The Lakers in the game that was recently on national TV blew them out from start to finish. Just didn't come and show. There's just a different feel to me.
Every year's different, though.
That's right. And I don't feel the same. When they went 6-4 last year during January, I didn't feel like this. So, but I'm with you, Paul. If Tatum, Brown, Porzingis are healthy and White and Holiday start playing more up to what we're used to, a lot of Vegas will pick them to be the odds on to win the championship.
Yeah, I do think though they have to get to that because I think the Cavs are for real. I think the Thunder are for real, and the Nuggets always have a chance because they got the best player if they can figure it out. So they got to get to that.
By the way, the Houston Rockets are way more athletic than the Boston Celtics right now. In succession, they beat the Cavs twice in a row, and then the Celtics.
And then they also beat the Hawks, who are a good team.
But they're very athletic.
Yeah.
And that's another one. I don't know how I thought we were athletic last year, and all of a sudden this year we're not as athletic.
Well, the game recently that the Houston Rockets beat the Celtics was a bleep show. I mean, down the stretch, the Celtics made coaching mistakes, player mistakes, missed shots, missed free throws. I almost want to just forget about that game. But the overall trend at the early part of the season is concerning. I agree.
Unfortunately, what you just said, we've talked about off air many times now. Those same things you just said. They've lost too many games like that. I don't know.
Yep. I think the big question is you've got the All-Star game coming up very shortly after this show.
Yeah.
And it's another thing we could have talked about, but it's so irrelevant that it doesn't matter. Will these All-Star changes prove?
Ridiculous.
So it's not worth us talking about. Don't get me wrong. But that's coming up. So most of the team will get a rest. I see maybe Tatum he's a starter, but Brown will probably make it. The rest of the team will get a rest. So that's a key point, right? Is coming off that, do they play better? Right. And that's entirely possible.
Absolutely. A lot of teams put it in high gear.
Because now all of a sudden they can see the end. Paul Pierce says, you've got to you cannot minimize the process. You have to take it seriously. Well, maybe they will coming out of that. So that's possible. And then the other date, of course, is the end of the regular season. So there are 2 chances to do it. And hopefully it works out.
All right, I want to wrap this up.
Okay.
We appreciate you tuning in, watching us on cable TV or listening to us on Apple or YouTube or Spotify or wherever.
Yeah, thanks.
Or on your transistor radio even.
Thank you.
I don't know how you do that. But I'm Paul Izzo for Ken Berman and Jim Russo. See you next time on Boston Sports Nuts.
Thank you for watching Boston Sports Nuts. You can find all of our episodes available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. For more information, go to westwoodmediacenter.tv or follow Boston Sports Nuts on Facebook, Instagram, and X.